You see, life is a dance, not a problem to be solved. And love, well, love is the music. It sways us, moves us, lifts us up, and at times it drifts away like the tide, only to return again. What do you do when the man you love leaves and comes back? The answer is simple, yet most people resist it. Imagine holding water in your hands. If you grasp it tightly, it slips through your fingers. But if you hold it gently, it remains. Love is the same. If he has returned, let him come, but do not suffocate the moment with fear. You must love as one loves a sunset, not by trying to freeze it, but by experiencing its warmth while it lasts. Imagine love as a river, constantly flowing, never still. The moment you try to grasp it, hold it, or control its direction, it slips through your fingers like water. Clinging is the great misunderstanding of love. It comes from fear, the fear that if you do not hold on tightly, it will vanish. But what if love was never meant to be held? What if, instead, it was meant to be experienced, moment by moment, without possession? When a man leaves and then returns, the natural reaction for many is to secure him, to make sure he does not leave again. You may feel the urge to demand reassurances, to seek guarantees, to make him prove his love through words, actions, or commitments. But what does that accomplish? It turns love into a contract, an arrangement based on terms rather than a free-flowing connection, and anything that is bound too tightly begins to suffocate. Think of the way the wind moves through the trees. It comes and goes as it pleases, bending the branches but never breaking them, because the trees do not resist. They do not cling to the wind, nor do they try to capture it. They simply sway with it, allowing it to pass, knowing that it will return in its own time, in its own way. This is how love works. It must be allowed to move, to breathe, to come and go without force. But clinging is not just about trying to hold on to someone physically. It is also a mental attachment. The mind becomes restless, caught in loops of worry and insecurity. Will he leave again? Does he truly love me? Am I enough? These thoughts create tension, and tension repels rather than attracts. The irony is that the more you hold on, the more you push love away. Love, like a bird, does not nest in a cage. It seeks open skies, freedom, and lightness. What do you do instead? You trust. You let go of control, understanding that love is not something to be possessed, but something to be shared. You allow the person you love to choose you freely, again and again, without pressure. And in doing so, you create a space where love flourishes naturally, not because it is forced, but because it is drawn to you like a river returning to the sea. When you stop clinging, you find something remarkable. You find peace. You realize that love was never about keeping someone. It was about being present with them, appreciating them, and allowing them to be who they are. And when love is given space, it often stays longer than when it is held too tightly. When he returns, do not reach out with desperation. Do not hold on out of fear. Simply be. Let him come as he wishes, stay as he chooses, and if he must leave again, let him go without bitterness. Because true love is not about possession. It is about presence. And presence can only exist when you allow life and love to flow naturally. When someone leaves and then returns, the mind immediately begins its calculations. It remembers the pain, the uncertainty, the sleepless nights spent wondering why. It replays the hurt like an old song, each note laced with resentment. And so, when he comes back, a part of you feels that he must pay for what he put you through. He must prove himself, suffer a little, feel what you felt. This is the instinct to punish. But what is punishment, really? It is an attempt to balance the scales of our own pain, a way of saying, if I suffered, so must you. Yet love does not work in equations. It is not an eye for an eye, a wound for a wound. When we punish, we are not healing. We are merely creating a cycle of suffering that feeds on itself. And suffering is no foundation for love. If he has returned, it means something. It means the story is not over, that there is still something to explore, to experience, but the story cannot move forward if you keep forcing it to look backward. You may be tempted to remind him constantly of his absence to make sure he understands just how much you endured. But consider this: does love flourish in an atmosphere of guilt? Can a heart that is weighed down by punishment truly open? The need to punish often comes from fear, the fear that if you forgive too easily, he will leave again, that if there are no consequences, he will take you for granted. But love is not a game of power. It is not about keeping score. If someone stays only because they fear your reaction, that is not love. That is control. And control is the opposite of love, for love is freedom. What do you do instead? You acknowledge your pain without weaponizing it. You recognize that you were hurt, but you do not let that hurt dictate your actions. You choose to meet the present moment as it is, rather than dragging the past into it. This does not mean you forget or ignore what happened. It simply means you do not let it poison what is happening now. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is strength. It is the ability to say, I will not let the past define my ability to love in the present. It does not mean excusing bad behavior or ignoring red flags, but it does mean refusing to let bitterness shape your heart. Because when you hold on to resentment, you are not imprisoning the other person, you are imprisoning yourself. Love is a living thing, and like all living things, it needs light and air to grow. Punishment is like placing it in the dark, choking it before it has the chance to bloom again. So when he returns, do not greet him with the weight of past wounds. If love is to continue, let it continue freely, without the burden of what has already passed. Only then can it become something real, something new, something worth having. The mind is a restless traveler, always moving between the past and the future, rarely settling in the now. It clings to memories, replays old conversations, and tries to predict what is yet to come. When the man you love leaves and then returns, your mind will naturally want to dissect everything, why he left, what it meant, whether he will leave again. It will pull you into a spiral of overthinking, convincing you that answers must be found before you can allow yourself to feel safe again. But here is the truth. The past no longer exists, and the future has not yet arrived. The only thing that is real, the only thing that is ever real, is this moment, right here, right now. And if you cannot be fully present in it, you will miss it entirely. Imagine you are holding a flower in your hands. If you are too busy wondering whether it will wilt tomorrow, you will not see its beauty today. If you are comparing it to a flower from yesterday, you will not appreciate what is in front of you. This is what we do with love. We are so consumed by what was and what might be that we forget to simply be. When he returns, the temptation will be to question everything, to analyze every word, every movement, searching for clues about his intentions. But love is not found in words alone. It is found in presence. And presence cannot be forced or negotiated. It can only be experienced. If you spend the present moment preparing for a possible future heartbreak, you are not actually living in love. You are living in fear. Being in the present does not mean ignoring the lessons of the past or pretending the future does not matter. It means understanding that neither of those things can be controlled in this exact moment. You cannot change what has already happened, nor can you predict what will happen next. What you can do is experience what is happening now, fully, without resistance. Right now, he is here. Right now, there is a chance to reconnect, to understand, to feel. Right now, you have an opportunity to love or not in a way that is desperate or clinging, but in a way that is free, open, and aware. If he leaves again, you will deal with that when it comes. If challenges arise, you will face them then. But worrying about those things before they happen is like carrying an umbrella every day, even when the sun is shining, just in case it rains. You miss the warmth, the light, the joy because you are too busy preparing for the storm. To live in the present is to trust. Trust that you will be okay no matter what happens. Trust that you can handle love without controlling it. Trust that this moment, just as it is enough. And in that trust, you will find peace, the kind of peace that does not depend on whether he stays or leaves, but on your ability to simply be. There is a great illusion in love, a belief that another person completes us, that without them we are somehow unfinished. We see it in poetry, in songs, in the stories we are told from the time we are young. You are my other half, we say, as if we are broken into pieces and must find someone else to make us whole. But this is not true. It has never been true. You are already whole. The man you love may leave and come back, he may drift like the tide, but if your sense of self is dependent on his presence, then you are not standing on solid ground, you are floating in uncertainty. Love, in its truest form, is not about completion, it is about sharing. It is not about filling an emptiness, but about bringing your already full self into connection with another. If you believe you need someone to complete you, then their absence will feel like the loss of a vital organ. You will feel hollow, desperate to fill the space they left behind. But that space was never meant to be filled by another persona. It was always meant to be filled by you. If you are whole within yourself, no one can take that from you, because it was never theirs to give. So what does it mean to be whole? It means knowing who you are outside of love, outside of relationships, outside of anyone else's validation. It means having a life that is rich and full, not because someone else is in it, but because you are in it. It means finding joy in your own company, fulfillment in your own path, and peace in the understanding that your worth is not defined by whether someone stays or leaves. When he returns, you may feel tempted to make him the center of your world again, to revolve your existence around his presence. But love should be like two planets orbiting the same sun, not one planet swallowed by the gravity of another. When you are whole, you do not cling, you do not beg, you do not fear his absence, because you know that your happiness was never dependent on him in the first place. This does not mean you do not love deeply. It does not mean you do not cherish connection. It simply means that love is something you choose, not something you need to survive. When you love from a place of wholeness, it is free, it is light, and it is not burdened by desperation. And paradoxically, this kind of love is the most powerful, because it is not given from a place of lack, but from a place of abundance. Do not wait for him to make you feel whole. Do not place your happiness in the hands of someone who may or may not stay. Instead, cultivate a love for yourself so deep, so unwavering, that whether he comes or goes, your essence remains untouched. Love in its highest form is not about losing yourself in another. It is about finding yourself so completely that love becomes something you share, not something you seek. There is a certain peace that comes with acceptance, but most people resist it. The mind, conditioned to control and shape reality, struggles with the idea of simply letting things be. When the man you love leaves and then returns, a part of you wants to manage the situation, perhaps, by holding on tightly, by questioning, by making sure it all happens according to your expectations. But love, like the seasons, follows its own rhythm. You cannot force the sun to rise sooner or the rain to fall only when it is convenient. Love, too, must be allowed to unfold in its own time, in its own way. Acceptance does not mean passivity. It does not mean surrendering your boundaries or ignoring your own needs. It means understanding that you cannot control another person's heart, nor should you try. When you truly accept something, you release the internal struggle against what is. You stop wishing things were different, and instead you meet life exactly as it is, without resistance, without expectation, without grasping for certainty. The pain of love often comes from resistance. You want him to stay forever, to love you in the way you imagine, to never leave again. But what if love is not meant to be owned? What if its beauty comes from its impermanence, from its ability to change, to grow, to transform? The more you fight against reality, the more you suffer. But the moment you accept it, truly, deeply accept it, you find peace. If he is here, let him be here. Love him fully, without the weight of fear. If he leaves again, let him leave, not with bitterness, but with the understanding that everything in life is fluid. People come, people go, and that is the nature of existence. Clinging will not change this. Trying to force love into permanence will only exhaust you. But when you accept, when you say, "This moment is enough," you free yourself from the endless need to control. To accept is not to say that you do not care. It is not to say that his presence or absence does not matter to you. It is simply to recognize that your happiness is not built upon his staying or going. It is built upon your ability to remain steady within yourself, to trust that whatever happens is exactly what is meant to happen. When he returns, do not hold the past against him. Do not demand promises for the future. Simply meet him in the present with open eyes and an open heart. If he stays, love him as he is, not as you wish him to be. If he leaves again, let him go, knowing that your life does not end with his absence. The love you seek, the peace you long for, has never been in his handset, has always been in yours. You